It all began as a joke, or at least that's what she called it. We were getting ready for a friend's anniversary dinner when she stood before the mirror, slipping into a black dress that made time itself pause. I told her she looked incredible. She laughed, brushing it off like she always did these days. "Careful," she teased, fastening her earrings with a sly grin. "Maybe I'll find 2 men half your age tonight." She said it like a joke, but it landed like a soft slap. I smiled anyway, the kind of smile a man learns to wear after years of avoiding arguments that lead nowhere. "Maybe you will," I replied, tightening my tie. "Just make sure they can afford dinner." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, don't be so dramatic." We used to laugh at our own teasing. But lately, every word felt like a test, sharp, deliberate, waiting to see how far she could push before I break. For months, she'd been different, distant, glued to her phone, always busy. I wasn't a jealous type, but when the person you love stops looking at you the same way, you feel it, like a bruise that never shows but always aches. At dinner, she owned the room, laughing, leaning in close, soaking in attention. I sat there, half listening to chatter, half watching her perform. When a friend asked how she managed to stay so radiant, she winked and said, "Must be all the young blood around me lately." Everyone laughed. I didn't. I just smiled, drained my glass, and decided something right then and there. If she wanted to play games with pride, I'd show her what happens when a man stops begging to be noticed. The next morning, I made a quiet choice. I booked a private weekend retreat, not for us, but for me. I'd spent years proving I could be the good husband, patient, forgiving, endlessly understanding. Now, I needed to remind myself who I was before her jokes became weapons. When I told her I'd be away that weekend, she frowned. "Where are you going?" "Somewhere I don't have to be the punchline," I said softly. She laughed, but not quite as confidently this time. Her words lingered in the air that night like smoke, light on the surface but toxic underneath. "Maybe I'll find 2 men half your age tonight," she'd said again, admiring herself in the mirror before heading out with her co-workers, a crowd I never trusted. They drank too much, flirted too freely, and always came home too late. Still, I smiled, said, "Have fun," and went back to my book. But something inside me shifted that night, not because I believed she meant it, but because she could say it at all. That kind of joke grows from distance, from neglect, from someone testing how deep they can cut before you bleed. When the door closed behind her, the silence felt heavier than usual. I sat there thinking about every time I let her little stab slide, her flirting at parties, her digs about me getting older or being too serious. That's when I realized I'd been shrinking in my own marriage. Shrinking just to make her feel bigger, funnier, more desirable. That night, I decided I was done. Not out of anger, out of self-respect. I started packing, not my bags, but my priorities. I called an old friend who owned a lakeside cabin 2 hours away and booked it for the weekend. Then I sent her a message. "Don't wait up tonight. I'll be gone before you're back." No anger, no drama, just truth. She didn't reply. When she stumbled in around 2 a.m., calling my name, half drunk, half curious, the house was silent. My side of the bed was empty. Half my clothes were gone. On the kitchen counter, I'd left a note. "You joked about finding 2 men half my age. I hope they make you laugh the way I used to." The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing, messages, missed calls, voice notes. Her tone shifted from calm to desperate. The laughter was gone, replaced by panic. Maybe she finally understood that love isn't something you mock. You either honor it or you lose it. 3 days later, she showed up at the cabin. Gone was the confident woman who'd left for that night out. Her eyes were swollen, her hair messy, her voice trembling as she said my name. I was sitting on the porch, coffee in hand, watching fog lift from the lake. She stood there silently for a long while, clutching the note like it was the last piece of me she had left. "I didn't mean it," she finally whispered. "It was just a joke." I looked at her and smiled, not with bitterness, but with clarity. "That's the problem," I said. "You stopped meaning the things that mattered and started joking about the ones that did." She sat down, her voice breaking as she confessed how empty that night had felt, how she'd laughed, flirted, played along, only to realize none of it filled the void. It just made it worse. She said when she came home to find my things gone, it felt like all the air had been sucked out of her chest. She waited for me to call, to argue, to come back. But I didn't. And that silence, she said, was louder than any fight we'd ever had. For the first time in years, I let her speak without interrupting. And for the first time in years, she truly listened. I told her how every little joke, every tease, had chipped away at me. How each comparison to someone younger or more exciting wasn't harmless. It was a reminder that she'd stopped seeing my worth. She cried then, not loud sobs, but quiet tears that come when the truth finally sinks in. "I thought you'd always be there," she whispered. "I thought no matter what I said, you'd never leave." I stood, set my empty mug on a railing, and said, "That's exactly why I had to." As I walked past her, she reached for my hand. But I didn't stop. I wasn't leaving out of anger anymore. I was leaving because I'd already done the hardest part, realizing my peace mattered, too. And as I drove down that long gravel road, her reflection in the rearview mirror grew smaller, until it disappeared completely, like the echo of a joke that was never funny in the first place.